Welcome back to NatChat, the Natilik podcast. My name is Rob Thorne. Today, we have the second in our Return to Office series of conversations, this time focusing on Wi-Fi. Whether you're working from your kitchen table or bedroom at home, or a meeting room in the office, Wi-Fi plays a huge part in how we get work done and will play an even bigger role in the future as we transition into hybrid working. We speak to two of the most knowledgeable and well-known figures in the European Wi-Fi technical community about their recommendations for network teams to help them prepare the office from both a safety and a coverage and capacity perspective. We also get some advice from our experts on how you can optimise your home working setup to provide you with the best possible experience. And stay tuned for the very end, where we're giving you a chance to win a free wireless survey as part of our special giveaway in this episode of the Natilik podcast. Okay, it's Monday the 1st of April, but do not worry, listener, this is definitely not an April Fool's joke. We've got a stellar lineup for you today, including some Wi-Fi royalty here to talk to us about wireless. But ladies first, we've got Hayley Knott making a comeback to NatChat. Hayley, hello.
Hi, Rob.
Welcome aboard once again. And I'm also delighted to have the Wi-Fi ninjas on board. Now, I've introduced you as one there, but you tend to come as a pair. But first, let me say hello to you, Deryng. How you doing, my man?
I've never been better, man. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, Hayley. Thank you, Rob. It's a massive, absolute, total blast and pleasure to be a guest at Natilik podcast. It's the first time. So thank you very much for inviting us.
First, hopefully not the last as well. And I love the enthusiasm that you're bringing. It's exactly what I want. Matt, I'm hoping to get the same level of enthusiasm from you. Welcome aboard, Matt Starling. How you doing, my friend?
Very good, thank you. Very good, thank you, Rob. Hayley, Mac, nice to see you all.
Yeah, it is nice to see you. So, listener, this is another in our Return to Office series. Following on from our collaboration discussion last week, we've got a show all about wireless today. However, before we dive in, let's not break tradition and get to know our guests a little bit more. So, Hayley, I'm going to start with you again. What keeps you busy day to day? Can you give the listeners a bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so I am a product marketing manager here at Natilik, and I look after the worlds of networking, data center, and security. And I also help out our internal teams in the DevOps space as well.
Nice. Yeah, my partner in crime, although we're not quite as famous as these two just yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. We'll get there. Next, I think it's worth introducing you as a duo, actually. So the two-headed force of nature that you are. You're obviously quite well known around Europe already, but would you two like to tell us a little bit about you and who you are and what you do? I'll start with you, Mac.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Mac. I'm a wireless engineer at Natilik, and I breathe, live, and dream Wi-Fi day in, day out, pretty much. So this is not only like a day job that I do. I kind of enjoy what I'm doing, so it doesn't even feel like it's work anymore, I don't think. So at work, we do, like I do, pretty much everything Wi-Fi related, from design to integration to optimization, troubleshooting, surveying. So pretty much everything, full stack, and also like working with the sales guys sometimes to give them a hand with positioning things that we sell and do. So that's me. Outside of Natilik, obviously, Matt and I, we are the Wi-Fi ninjas, and we do the podcasts, blogs, videos, conferences, public speaking, training, and I believe that both of us, we enjoy it as much as I do enjoy working for Natilik. So it's been like 6 years at Natilik. I don't think I've ever spent as much time anywhere. So that's probably
always a good sign.
That means something, right? It's like I'm a dinosaur. Yeah, it's really good time, man. It's like amazing company. So enjoy being here, enjoy being everywhere. Like Wi-Fi Ninjas, Natilik, this podcast, amazing. Thank you, Matt. Up to you.
Yeah, what's that saying? Love what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life. Something along them sort of lines. So I feel, I feel very lucky and privileged. I get to just mainly focus and work on Wi-Fi day in, day out. So it's how I met Mac. I joined Natilik probably about two and a half years ago now. I think it is coming up to like 2.5 years. I think it'll be 3 years in September. So me and Mac, we first had a phone call. And actually, I don't think I spoke to you over the phone first. I think I spoke to our current manager at the time, and then he arranged for us to meet up to like a face-to-face interview, and we met in a nice, lovely pub in between both where we lived, and you grilled me on some Wi-Fi questions.
Yeah, I was going to say, did that get pretty heated, or was it pretty? Did you was it love at first sight?
It's definitely love at first sight, especially because I could tell Mac was trying to catch me out with some tricky Wi-Fi questions where some other people may not have been able to spot him trying to ask these sort of questions to make me trip up somewhere. But fortunately, I was able to answer them and bat them away, and then
The questions were easy, man.
oh, easy, but no one else has been able to. You've been searching for a fellow engineer for a long time.
6 months, I think. Yeah, like once a week I had an interview, something like this for the past 6 months, and I was so struggling to find someone that would be able to do some Wi-Fi with me at Natilik, because I was on my own back then, and I was quite desperate. So the interview with Nat we had pretty much on the day of my holidays, I think. I was about to catch a plane, so we didn't have too much time for an interview. And how much time did it take for you to get employed after the interview?
Yeah, I think like 3 days. I think I spoke to Ian on the Monday, met you on the Wednesday, and I was hired by the Friday.
Love it. Sounds like a Craig David song, but yeah. Well, there you go, listener. Not only do we bring you brilliant tech industry information, but also tech love stories as well. So there's one for free for you. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of what you guys do. I'm not going to lie, the Wi-Fi Ninjas podcast does take me out of my depth a little bit, but you guys are doing incredible stuff across the board. So yeah, definitely keep it up. So let's get started then on our main discussion. To get us started, crew. The beginning of the global lockdown, as we all know, businesses across the world kind of scrambled to pivot to remote working. Now that we've got a roadmap for returning to the office and what that might look like, what are the main considerations for network and Wi-Fi teams returning to the office? Is it as simple as just going back to the way things were and everything working the same? I'm sure there's more to it than that. So, Matt, why don't I start with you to begin with?
Sure. Well, it's hard to know for certain, but I don't feel like when we go back to work, it's going to be the exact same as what it was before. I think there's going to be a different kind of demand on the Wi-Fi and the network. I think people will be using it in a slightly different way. And I think the other thing is like making sure people can get back to work safely. So I think from how the Wi-Fi network will run that day to day, compared to what it was pre-pandemic, I think there'll be probably more users on the Wi-Fi now and doing different applications to what they were before. Because I think even though there's a roadmap to get back to working safely in the offices together again, I think that, now so many people have adapted to working from home. I think, a lot of people will be working from home and some will come to the office. So I think there'll be more applications like Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, Zooms, voice calls over Wi-Fi, video calling over Wi-Fi. Maybe offices space so they don't kind of function the way they did before. So everyone will just come in, sit at a hot desk and work together. Maybe it's going to be more of a collaboration space. So, you're going to have people coming in for team meetings or meeting with customers. And, the demand on the Wi-Fi, I think, is going to be slightly different to what it was before. So I think if I was a business, I'd kind of have that in mind and be thinking, is my Wi-Fi network going to be capable of the new ways of working? And then the second part to that is like, can I guarantee that my staff, when they come back to the office, are they going to be safe? Are we going to be able to, track and make sure if someone does unfortunately contract COVID, if they are in close proximity or come into contact with other members of staff, can we let them know? Is there anything we can do to keep them safe? If you're going to book a meeting room, making sure that the meeting room is not occupied past a certain amount of recommended occupancy to COVID safe reasons. So I hope it goes back to normal as much as possible, because I love working in the Natilik office. I enjoy the fun environment and seeing all of our colleagues. But I think there still will be a kind of like a transition period, and then hopefully one day we get back to kind of where we were.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is like also another consideration that I don't feel like the gut feeling says that companies, they won't be installing as many cables now, because you mentioned the hot desking. It will be Wi-Fi first, basically. So the offices will convert from everything cabled, wired, with docking stations all around, sporadic meetings to Wi-Fi first environments where people will not only be connecting their Wi-Fi corporate devices, but also the Wi-Fi BYOD devices, guest devices, and it will be tons of devices. So even if the office will not be having as many people as we used to have before, Wi-Fi devices counts, from Wi-Fi devices count perspective, we probably will see more uptake on the Wi-Fi side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm with you, Matt. I do definitely miss going into the office. I mean, I sound like a little dog, needy little dog when I'm sort of talking about this on the podcast. It's not the first time I've done it, but I do miss that interaction, face-to-face interaction. So I'm definitely looking forward to coming back. So how about from a different angle then, Hayley? Me and you were having a conversation the other day about maybe from another angle. So obviously internally businesses have got a lot of things to think about, but how about for the areas of, things that we've missed, like face-to-face meetings with external people and things like that? What do you think is going to change from that perspective, or what do you think is worth thinking about for those teams that will be making those decisions?
Yeah, well, I think the return to the office is really interesting because it poses a real opportunity as well for businesses to evaluate what their wireless infrastructure looked like, what were their requirements, but what are their new requirements going to be to support their teams. And when we're looking at this, we have this kind of window before everybody goes back to really be critical on what we need our network to do, why we need it to do it. And the one thing which came to mind, we were discussing was quite often you'll have visitors, you'll have potential clients or existing clients coming into your office. They've come for a meeting, and possibly one of the first things they do, the first times they could actually interact with one of your systems and your networks is by trying to log on to the guest Wi-Fi. Now, I think all of us know that can range from being a very simple process to a very painful one. And we do have to remember that engagement forms part of our customer experience. So when people come in, how easy is it to access the Wi-Fi? How many barriers do they have to go through? How fast is it? It all builds into actually a little bit of like the brand reputation. Are you facilitating speed and access and kind of flexibility of working? And is that the kind of values that you want your business to be seen as advocating? And Wi-Fi does that. All of us, if you look at like the hierarchy of needs, I think everybody would say Wi-Fi is definitely a universal need now. If you're buying a house, you go and you stand there and you do it, like test the Wi-Fi signal. And I don't think you can find people get more frustrated than if the Wi-Fi is down or they're having issues. Especially if you're a company and you pride yourself on your tech stature and your posture, and there's nothing more embarrassing. I've had it myself where during lockdown, you've been on video calls with family and friends even, and if something goes wrong, everybody kind of looks at you. They're like, well, you work for a tech company. You should be able to sort this out. Um, it 9 times out of 10, it's nothing we can actually have control over, but this is, we have control over our guest experiences and our clients' experiences when they enter our office spaces in regards to Wi-Fi access.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest and most annoying fallacies of working for an IT or a tech business without actually having any technical experiences. You are the go-to IT support guy, right? It's like just one of the biggest tropes. That's an interesting one. So what about, as part of this now hybrid way of working, so people are going to be obviously working from home as well as working in the office as well. People are probably going to have been maybe trying to cobble together ways of making their Wi-Fi work for them in terms of video calls and being optimized for that. But coming back to the Wi-Fi ninjas, do you guys have any tips for people that might be struggling with their Wi-Fi, or just best practice little things for people that they might not have considered as part of that?
Yeah, so one of the most common things I would see with like people's home Wi-Fi, if like I've got a friend or a family member, they say to me, "Oh, Matt, the Wi-Fi at home isn't working very good. Like, what do you recommend?" But one of the first things I'll ask him is that, "Oh, can you send me a picture of where your home Wi-Fi router or device is?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I get a picture of some downstairs cupboard where they've stuffed like a BT Home Hub router, and it's like I can see they pulled out like an ironing board, the Hoover, some other rubbish that they've just chucked in there. And they said, "Oh yeah, we put it in there, but when I'm upstairs in the bedroom, the signal is just really low and it doesn't work." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I mean, you've stuck it literally probably in the worst place. You put it underneath a set of stairs, then you've chucked a Hoover on top of it, and then an ironing board and an ironing, and then I don't know, some clothes and stuff. So maybe you want to maybe move it to a better position, like get it out from being completely surrounded by so much material that's going to block the Wi-Fi signal, because you can't fix Wi-Fi that's not there. You'd have to, install something else like some sort of extender, an additional access point, and something like that. So the first thing is making sure that the coverage is kind of what you would expect it to be, and you've got signal from the device to everywhere in your house, your apartment, wherever you live in. And the second thing I would say is that, making sure you're avoiding your neighbors as much as possible, not just with COVID and staying, socially distanced, but with your Wi-Fi, you want to have some social distance there as well, because Wi-Fi, we have to share the air with everyone. So if I'm on the same channel as, my neighbor, we've got to share that kind of that split. So the best thing to do is to be on a different Wi-Fi channel to our neighbors. So if you can reconfigure your device to not work on the same Wi-Fi channels as your neighbors. If you're like me, in a block of apartments where I've got neighbors to my left, to my right, above me, below me, what you find is that the ISPs like Sky, BT, Virgin, what they want to do is they want to have a device that can transmit as most powerfully as possible. And, like you said, you want to have the fastest speed. So to get faster speeds, you've got to bond your Wi-Fi channels together. So they use the widest possible channels, and then they enable all of the lower data rates so you can stay connected from farther away. Well, that's great if you, live on your own and you're not surrounded by loads of people. But when you've got like 6-7 other neighbors all on the same Wi-Fi channel as you, all transmitting as strongly as possible, you've got to share the medium with everyone else, and it's going to, cause interference. So I think trying to avoid your neighbors is one of the good tips. So what I recommend is just download some sort of free Wi-Fi scanner, just have a look at what's going on in your environment. If you can reconfigure your device at home to use a different channel to what all your neighbors are using, then great. If not, maybe it's time to upgrade and buy some sort of device that you can have more control, more advanced settings control over that device. So I say fix the coverage. If it's not there, maybe put your device in a better place, and then check to make sure you're not interfering with your neighbors as much as possible. So reducing the amount of interference and having the best, strongest quality signal. My two big tips.
These are the biggest. I just to add to what you've already said, there are two bands, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz in Wi-Fi. And on 2.4, it's way more difficult to avoid your neighbors. So without diving deeper into the technicalities of that, switch to 5 gigahertz if you can. Just bear in mind that 5 gigahertz will not have as strong coverage as 2.4 gigahertz, but it will be way easier for you to avoid your neighbors. In bigger houses or in older houses with thicker walls, additionally, you might need to have more than one Wi-Fi access point. And if that's the case, then just like a standard BT hub or Virgin hub or Sky hub or whatever you have from your ISP, internet service provider, might not be sufficient enough. And then you have two choices. You can go enterprise grade and pick from recognizable vendors like Cisco, Meraki, Mist, or anything else like slightly cheaper, maybe like Ubiquiti, or you might go a home routers route where you can pick something like Netgear Orbi or Amazon Eero. These are two very strong choices for home. And other than that, yeah, absolutely. Avoid your neighbors, have a perfect coverage, and then you're sorted.
Avoid your neighbours. Definitely some context required there. But no, that's really, really good. I think I learned something there myself as well. So another thing I'm really interested to hear from you guys, especially, is just what the environment looks like for you guys at the moment, in terms of you're obviously, as you mentioned, Matt, constantly on site with clients and things as well. But what kind of projects or what kind of things are you working on with clients at the moment? Matt, why don't I come to you first this time?
Of course. So currently I have several different clients. Most of them, they are sitting in a carpeted office spaces. Few of them, they are actually slightly still a carpeted office mostly, but more architecturally developed, weird, original buildings with more challenges, I guess, with massive, vast open spaces. So recently I was visiting a very nice town of Bath in England to work on a troubleshooting, so a validation survey activity where the client had issues with Wi-Fi quality, where they were dropping off sometimes. Even if they were not dropping off, sometimes they had issues with coverage. Some there some of the key people, they couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi at all, and they had slow roaming, sticky devices. They couldn't roam at all, or they would drop off mid-call, or in the middle of the day, they were just sitting on a conference call, and then 1 second, everyone in the area would just drop off. The access point would not reboot, but they will drop off all the clients, this kind of stuff. So I went to the site and validated the network both physically and from a configuration perspective, coming up with like 20 different requirements, some of them quick hot fixes where you can make your environment, like a 10 years old environment, better immediately, and some of a more of a long-term fixes showing not exactly yet how to redesign, but outlining that you will need to redesign, especially in these areas. And if you do, then take a look at your architecture, because today it's doing like a central switching, and maybe you would like to leverage local switching, and you would have to think about connecting your remote sites slightly differently instead of going through one, centralizing traffic through data centers, slowing it down. Maybe you want to leverage local connectivities. Maybe you would want to go Wi-Fi 6 this time, and what options do you have there? So outline all this stuff. So after just like 1 day on site, we came up with not only fixes, like a super easy to implement 1 day type of fixes, but also a roadmap about how to approach these issues more long term. So that was me. How about you, Matt?
So I've got a few different projects on the go at the moment for different types of customers, really. But I would say the first one that would be quite good to talk about is that we do quite a lot is that, especially in London, like new office deployments where a customer has recently acquired some space and they're reconfiguring the office, or it's a brand new office, or maybe it was an existing office and they're redesigning, repurposing the office space. So they want us to come in and do a new design of their Wi-Fi network. But, they send us these plans and we say, okay, can we come on site and do some testing? Like, well, the site isn't actually built yet. Can you, just do a design from looking at the floor plans off-site? Which we can totally do. We can take the floor plans, we can load it into our software, which we use Ekahau, and then we can come up with a predictive model. So we do a design that way using the software by simulating, drawing all the walls, attenuation areas, placing the access points, looking at the heat maps and stuff. But, this is all simulated design stuff. So when the office gets into a more of a, as-built state, when it's nearing completion and they've built some of the partitions, the walls, the glass partitions, and there's things there we can go and test. We then go on site, we do our testing, gather our data, and then come back to our predictive model, update our design to make sure it reflects what's going to be actually in the environment, so we get a nice accurate design for our customer. So we do quite a lot of that for lots of different customers, because I see that happening quite a lot especially in and around London. Loads of companies moving into bigger spaces or reconfiguring their current space to make it more open plan. So they need someone to come in and design where to place the access points.
So basically, we just mentioned about two different types of activities, like main types of activities when it comes to physical Wi-Fi. Matt was talking about the redesign or a design portion where you come in and think about how to build a new Wi-Fi network using a set of requirements and success criteria. And I was quickly covering a very quick example of how to validate, troubleshoot, optimize Wi-Fi network. So we do the validation surveys. We do different types of validation surveys focused on troubleshooting, optimization, post deployments, and also validation surveys before we even start doing the design. So design typically has two elements, on-site and off-site, especially for more complicated sites. So for as long as the site has like more than several APs, we always would like to come on site to do a validation survey before we even start designing, to understand how our new Wi-Fi system will fit into the existing RF radio frequency environment, considering all the neighbors, interferences, sources, Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi, this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's all I wanted to.
I was just going to say the another type of project that I work on quite often with the customers, and more recently with the whole pandemic, and now things are starting to like they're going to be reopening again, is our assessment type survey. So it's a little bit similar to what Mac did with the validation survey, troubleshooting survey. He went on site and had to predict the existing environment. Customers, are seeing the roadmap to get back to working, and they want to make sure that when their employees they go back to the office, the Wi-Fi is going to be fit for purpose for the new demand. So they've been asking us to come in, do a survey on site, look at how the Wi-Fi access points are placed, look at the configuration of the wireless. So not just doing the physical RF survey walking around, but actually review the configuration of if it's a cloud controller, if it's an on-site controller, and take all of this into consideration for what is going to be demanded on the Wi-Fi in the new way of working, and then we can put that all into a document, into a nice document, and give that back to our customer with a whole bunch of recommendations on how, even if they just keep the same Wi-Fi infrastructure and the access points in the exact same position, is there things that they can do to improve the Wi-Fi? That, if there's lots of rogue devices, is there any interference? Can we reconfigure those channels, to avoid other tenants inside the building? Are there some configuration parameters we can improve on? Maybe they use a really secure method of access for one of their corporate networks, but they haven't got any of the fast roaming parameters turned on. So say if there's going to be a corporate Wi-Fi laptop connected to that network and they want to roam and transition between access point to access point, if they've not got that configured, then, it could be seen as like a poor Wi-Fi call or video call over Wi-Fi as they transition between access points. So we can take a look at lots and lots of things and get lots of information out of from just going and reviewing their current Wi-Fi setup and just doing an assessment audit of their actual RF side using our survey software. And then we can take a look at their configuration as well and make a whole bunch of recommendations. So they seem to be quite popular ones, especially at the moment.
Yeah, so thanks for running through that, Matt. Actually, off the back of this podcast, we're going to be running a competition for a free giveaway of one of those Wi-Fi assessment audits that Matt's just run through there. So if you are interested, please follow the link connected to the podcast, and it will take you to a site where you can pop in some information and be in for a chance to win a free engagement with one of the guys.
Hooray! Such a magnificent prize.
I love it. It is, and it's a podcast first as well, our first giveaway. I'm pretty excited about that, to be fair. So one other thing I'd like to touch on before we tie things up, boys and girls, is in terms of just the tech that's available. Now, we try to steer clear of jumping into the nitty-gritty details of technology and leave that to the experts like you guys. But while I've got you here, obviously our industry doesn't usually stay the same over any period of time. I know a year ago on your podcast, you guys were talking quite a lot about Wi-Fi 6. Has much changed over the last 12 months? And is there much that, in terms of advice that you could give to people maybe considering looking at Wi-Fi 6 as part of, again, any changes that they're making to their Wi-Fi infrastructure? Mac, I don't know if you want to pick that one up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we started talking about Wi-Fi 6, it was closer to 2 years ago. I think that was the Nomads event. It was 2019, as far as I remember. So it has been a while. And since then, quite a lot of stuff has changed. So when we were hosting this event at Natilik's offices pre-pandemic, beautiful times, guys.
I remember. I kind of remember. Time just sort of blurs into one now, which is probably why I thought it was a year ago when it was more like 2.
Yeah. I think we were at Wi-Fi 6, 802.11ax draft, 2.0 or something. Now we are on draft, I think it's version 5, so it's still not like a ratified standard, but all the major vendors out there, they have released a proper Wi-Fi 6 APs that will be fully Wi-Fi 6 certified. And there are just few things worth mentioning. First thing is that the Wi-Fi 6 is not more costly. It's not more expensive than Wi-Fi 5, 802.11ac that was with us since 2014. So if you are buying a new equipment and if you are scared of Wi-Fi 6 or you don't have Wi-Fi 6 devices in your enterprise environment, still go for Wi-Fi 6 and worst case, disable Wi-Fi 6 features. It will future-proof the network quite considerably. Additionally, even today, if you have Wi-Fi 6 and you start dropping high-density traffic onto the Wi-Fi 6 APs, even using Wi-Fi 6 clients, as it stands today, it doesn't give you massive benefits to have Wi-Fi 6. So if you have a juicy Wi-Fi 5 from a few years ago, Cisco 3800s lying around, you can still use them very comfortably. So I would probably suggest focusing on different things than just replacing APs for Wi-Fi 6 because of the name. But if you are at your upgrade cycle, by all means go Wi-Fi 6. And for home environments, I don't feel like Wi-Fi 6 will give you any real benefits. So just to give you one only benefit that you might have from Wi-Fi 6 at home, pretty much today, is that you will have slightly higher speeds when you are close to the access point, and only then when you are really close to the AP. To give you a real example, I have access point in the landing. So I'm in my office. I have 2 walls between me and the AP, and I'm getting 573 megs data rate on 40 megahertz channel with 2 spatial streams device. If I had Wi-Fi 5, I would have gone down from 573 to around 450 megs. That's it. Okay, so if it costs you like a massive premium, few £100 difference, Wi-Fi 5 is still good, especially for home environments. And when it comes to the devices, most of the new devices, especially flagships, Apple, Samsung, Xiaomi, so biggest brands out there, but not only them, most of the other brands, and not only in consumer mobile devices, but also in laptops, they pack Wi-Fi 6 today. So you can't go wrong with that, really.
No, I think Matt covered it really well, especially, if customers are at that point where they're, some of the access points they've got currently, they're, say, at that end of sale, end of life, and they need to upgrade, then it's totally worth going for Wi-Fi 6, because in the future, you're going to have all of these devices that come on, they support Wi-Fi 6, so you should have better efficiency, better battery life. So yeah, if you're at that point in your life cycle, then it definitely makes sense to go for Wi-Fi 6 rather than buying a previous standard of Wi-Fi, which is, Wi-Fi 5. Any other new technology? I suppose one thing that we haven't really spoken about is, if you are trying to get people to come back to work safely, how you can, maybe track and see room occupancy details. If you, want to see if someone's come into close proximity with someone else for over a certain period of time, and the HR team can, doesn't necessarily need to know exactly, who's what tag until they've become infected with COVID, and then you can send a notification to the 5 people that they were around for 10 minutes that, hey, someone that you was around has got COVID. Can you just work from home for the next 2 weeks to, try and control the virus and not spread it around anymore? So I think that's probably anything that we didn't cover that you maybe want to just touch on. That's something that you can facilitate in any kind of environment, from carpeted offices all the way to, very large industrial warehouses.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think people often see the network as like an isolated almost piece of business kit or infrastructure, when actually this is an opportunity for other business units such as like HR teams, people teams, to utilize the technology to assist them. There will be lots of compliance and lots of rules and regulations and restrictions in how you're managing occupancy in your offices, how you are implementing new policies and procedures to keep your people safe. And also another factor you have to consider is the privacy side to the data that you're collecting. So obviously making sure that an element of the data is anonymous until it needs to be utilized. And that is where you can leverage your Wi-Fi network and capacity tracking to make sure that you're informing your teams and acting with a rapid response.
Okay, I will just add something very quickly here. It's not just Wi-Fi network, so we can leverage existing Wi-Fi systems that we have to give us some extent of location capabilities. So with just Wi-Fi, it will be like a presence. We can have something like how many people we have in West Wing versus East Wing, or if we have like thick walls, we can see how many people we have in a meeting room. But typically, that's it. And we can infuse Wi-Fi with more underlying technologies like BLE or ultra-widebands to cater for all different verticals, pretty much. So in a carpeted office, Wi-Fi 6 APs from Cisco, they have built-in BLE radios that we can leverage for the RTLS, so indoor locating of people. So if you have contact tracing for COVID applications, you pretty much have the accuracy that is required to give you not only contact tracing, but also room occupancy, booking of hot desks. You might be accurate enough to give like indoor navigation capabilities for corporate mobile devices. So you can find, the guests can find their hosts, the new employees can find their meeting rooms, and you can find free meeting rooms and see where they are. Even though like I've been at Natilik for I don't know how many years, 6 years now, I still can't remember where the meetings room are. So just coming back to the underlying text extremely quickly, if you have existing Cisco environment, if you want to have more accuracy and more functionality, it's an easy addition, kind of, with an overlay from one of our other partners. Or if you have a dense Cisco deployment of your APs with BLE radios, you can leverage that to give you like 3 to 6 meters accuracy. And the track is reversing now. That's very convenient.
So I'll just add to that then quickly, then whilst Mac's dealing with the truck outside of his house, is that, if you want to come, I'd say if this is a topic that you're interested in, come and speak to us, because depending on your environment will really depend on what type of technology we go for to use to give you that level of accuracy that you're looking for. Because if you're in an industrial warehouse space compared to a carpeted office, we're going to use different underlying technologies for the tracking. So if this is something that you're interested in, I'd really recommend reaching out to someone, one of the Natilik sales guys or marketing team, and then so you can get in contact with us to have a chat about it, so we can help you with coming up with the right technology design and deployment to get your staff back working safely and healthily.
Rule of thumb there is not to try to solve issue that doesn't exist. So first of all, it's probably always best to understand what we want to solve with the indoor positioning, and then when you have something on your mind, like a real challenge that you are struggling to solve, then reach out and we can help you out with the level of accuracy and precision that you might require to make that happen.
Yeah, that advice is awesome. I think it's safe to say this is the most informative episode of the podcast that we've done so far, at least anyway. So I think that's pretty much the best time to tie things up. So Matt, Hayley, thank you very much for your time. It's been great.
Pleasure to ours.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much. It was a massive blast, man. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to NatChat, the Natilik podcast. Please subscribe to the Natilik podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. And leave us a review while you're there. It really helps us improve and grow the show. Please note that opinions expressed on the Natilik podcast are those of the hosts or our guests, not the organisations that they represent. You can find more information on Natilik on our website, that's natilik.com. You can also find us on social media. On Twitter, we're at Natilik Group, as well as Facebook and LinkedIn. Our theme music was provided by Dan Short, who you can find at Danzer, that's DANZR, on music streaming services. This is Rob Thor, and thanks again for listening.